year or last year, but that sounds about right.
No.
It's
The
an
little
analogy.
one usually crashes right around that time. Said 7:30 usually he needs to get put down for bed, and the wife deals with him for the most part. So I usually end up putting him down for bed. So that's a 7:30 routine to make sure he gets to sleep.
We'll get you off before 7:30. How about that?
That's fine. He's gonna stay up a little bit later tonight.
All right. Okay. Oh, hold on. I just got a weird thing. Oh, I have to restart my computer. We'll do that later.
Smooth.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It is 20 laps with number 34, Cody Apfelbeck. Hi, Cody.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Actually, Chris, the formal title is 20 Laps with Chris. And tonight's guest, driver of the number 34 A Modified, Cody Apfelbeck.
We're not going to argue about this on here, Jerry. It's 20 laps with Chris nodding and laughing and Jerry asking questions.
Yeah, we'll just jump right in. Cody, the last couple of years, you've had your seat time in the A Mod. But for those that have been fans of Beaver Dam Raceway, they saw you get your start in the Legends. Tell us how that all got started. How'd you go from just Cody Apfelbeck to Cody Apfelbeck race car driver?
Well, so my cousin, as many people know, Chris Flick, had raced Legend cars for many years. I helped him for a while. He had twisted my arm for many years to get a Legend car, and my dad had kind of always made the comment of, nah, he grew up in racing. He's like, it's just a big money pit and stuff like that. And when I got my big boy job and was out of college, I had a little bit more money that I could spend money by myself. And one day he had sent me a car that was for sale down in Iowa. And I guess 3.5 or 4 hours later, we took the trip down and bought a car on a whim. My dad's like, I don't think it's a very good idea. You got better things you can spend your money on. But he came down with me, and I ended up buying the car. And after the fact, he knew that if we were driving down there to look at a car, we were going to bring it home just because that's how I am. So I would say my cousin Chris really twisted my arm quite a bit to get into it.
And Chris was quite successful as a Legend driver. You followed quickly in his footsteps. Kind of an auspicious beginning there, but boy, you did pick it up quickly once you really got into it.
Yes, speed's always been something that I've enjoyed. I ride motorcycles, so it's not something that I would say scares me. I had rolled darn near anything and everything before ever getting into a race car, so that side I was already had checked the box on that, so that didn't really bother me. But just I think I underestimated how the brain processes the speed. I thought, I'm like, this really can't be that complicated. Like, you're really not going that fast. And then I look back at some of the videos of my very first race, whether it be down at Wilmot, when I spin out and get collected in a wreck, or my very first time at Beaver Dam a couple nights later, and I just realized how slow I was, and I felt like I was going crazy fast, and I wasn't even close to anybody.
When you look at it now, did you ever think when you got started, obviously getting into the Legends, coming in from no racing experience, going to the Legends, was the dream always, hey, I want to get to that A mod? Or when did you, and I know the last year you ran Legends, you were very successful. Was that the impetus to go, hey, I need to step up? Or tell me about the path.
I guess I really didn't have any expectations when I got into it. Obviously, just just my goal was to be successful, and so on and so forth with that. I want to say would have been my second last year. I was in Legend Cars, which would have been the year directly after my father had passed. A good friend of ours, of the family, had started helping racing with us then, and really kind of helped even more that final year. And he just said, in all reality, with what you have accomplished in the Legend Cars, he just felt it was time for me to step up. He's like, there's nothing really left for you to accomplish here in the Legend Cars, and he felt my driving ability would lean good to going into a bigger car. Now, my personal preference, because I do like speed, I would personally love to run a sprint car or like a midget. I'm more apt to go into a midget because I enjoy like just how they run. My wife would not allow that to happen. So at that point in time, we had to make some compromises in the marriage life. So she's like, well, you can get into a modified if you want, but it's got to be pink or got to have pink on. I'm like, well, I guess if that's the stipulation, that's what we'll do. But I initially was going to go into the sport mod. And my buddy's just like, let's just jump straight into the A mod, just go big or go home kind of thing. So that's kind of why we landed at the A mod rather than even jumping into a sport mod right away.
I gotta say that's a smart woman when she wants a little pink on there. But kind of spinning off of that, you've grown up as that young lad coming out of college to making that step, getting married, and now you've got a family with a whole lot of additional responsibilities. Tell us about how that works on the household with splitting time between job, marriage, wanting to spend time out in the race shop, and you've got kids to take care of.
Yeah, it's definitely a juggling act. I said, obviously, like we were talking before we went on air, with me being on the road before we had a kid, that was one thing she said. As soon as we knew Jace was coming, that something had to change there, because with me being gone 3-4 nights a week, and obviously when I was racing 2-3 nights during the weekend, so there wasn't much free time, especially to designate towards the wife, and then obviously a kid on top of that. So with me changing jobs, it gives a little bit more time, obviously, in the evenings to spend time with her and spend time with Jace. But we obviously hit it quite hard my first year, just because I knew seat time's key, and and stuff like that, just for learning purposes. But this year we've kind of did a little bit step back. Obviously, Jace wasn't quite here my first year, but this year we've been doing like every other weekend, or we take a couple weekends off, and then we go racing a full weekend set. Now that has its struggles in itself, because when you're not in a race car, you become rusty, whether it's a week or a year, it doesn't really matter. If you take a week off, you become some sort of rusty, which is how it is. You need, it just takes a couple laps to catch back up, or whatever the case may be.
And that's always with this guys that, the touring pros that are racing
Yep.
multiple nights in a week, they're just on the sharp edge of their game. It's just a honed skill. When you look at yourself coming from the Legend to the A-Mod, do you find yourself picking up a lot of the skills you learned in the Legend? You're able to transfer to the A-Mod, or did you basically have to put all that in a junk bucket and start over?
Driving wise, I would say correlates fine. With the horsepower to weight ratio in a Legend car, you have to be very easy on the gas, very throttle sensitive. With the A-Mod, with the G60, again, same concept. You can have as much power as you want, but the tire can really only take so much to get put to the ground. So that side of the thing, race that side really translated well to the mod. I don't burn a lot of tires on the dry, because I'm really easy on the gas. But setup wise, completely in left field. So when we start, there is not a single thing setup wise on a Legend car that really correlates to a modified, just because
No?
we don't have all the cars in a legend car. So there's so many different angles, so many different more adjustments that you have to mess around with, whether it be shocks, bars, you name it. The modifieds have it, obviously, where a legend car is much more basic, I would say.
Yeah, the legend cars, so much of the components are either spec components coming straight out of INX, and that's the only legal component to that. And you're limited to what you can do, but that's what makes the legends a little easier for the beginners to get started in. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, so I think the legend cars, because they are so similar, will allow you to see the talent 9 times out of 10 over who spends more money. A good driver will shine through on a legend car just because everyone's, I would say, for the most part, on equal playing ground. Obviously, there's little nicks and knacks people learn over the years of setup wise, but for the most part, the cars are so similar. If you have someone that's talented enough, they rise to the top. Is how it works.
With your modified, you guys went, when you started with the mod, you went a different direction chassis wise, something that you don't see in this area. Tell us about that.
I guess that winter when we were kind of sitting down to kind of have that conversation of what kind of car to have, we kind of just pinged a handful of different chassis manufacturers off each other. Longhorn at that point in time, Lethal. We talked about some of the local guys, whether it be Reinwald over there with Slick or a Rage car. You got Shaw's. There's a plethora of chassis options for that. But what we looked at that point in time, who was winning all the time, what chassis was he in, and we actually looked to say what chassis does nobody have, or very limited people have around here, because we didn't want to run the risk that if we wanted tech support, we couldn't get it because someone local here was good and didn't want to give up the information. So we looked at that and just said, hey, at that point in time, Strickler was in a Longhorn. So that's kind of what we looked for at that point in time. And we just happened to kind of have one fall in our lap right at the end of the legend season, actually. And I happened to have a guy that was interested in buying our whole operation out of Montana, and it just kind of happened to work quite well.
I know you had touched on it earlier, and your dad was a big part of your racing. I know when you were in the legends, always a class act, and he really is missed. I'm sure you guys, he really looked down proudly on where you came with your legend, but also where you've gone with a modified. That's got to make you feel special to know that he got you started.
Yes, I'm sure he was obviously proud with what we were accomplishing back when he was still around. Me and my brother, actually, the funny thing is we seen a memory here of a couple of years ago when we went down in Iowa at one of Warren's Cops Foundation races down there, and it just struck back a memory. Obviously, my dad was still around, so that was one of the bigger races that he was still here for. So it was just like, we really wish he was still here to experience what we're going through. But I darn well know my dad would have scolded me for spending as much money on this modify as I have.
Yeah, if there's anything we'd like to change, one would just be to somehow put the brakes on some of the costs. But some of those costs are born into the better safety equipment. You guys, I know from you with your legend, and also your AMOD, and as most of the AMOD drivers, you're pretty conscientious about making sure you got good safety gear, because the AMODs, when you get out there, you're really hauling the mail.
Yeah. I'm surprised that IMCA hasn't made it mandatory for some of the head and neck restraint stuff. So I don't see as many per se modified drivers with this, but I see how many IMCA stock cars at different tracks that just have a donut, and I'm just like, technology's come a long way for a reason, especially on that side. Some people claim they're uncomfortable, but it's no different than anything else. Once you get used to it, you don't even recognize it.
And there's enough different choices out there for approved head and neck restraints. And again, I go back, you coming out of the Legends where they were actually required, a required piece of safety equipment, not an optional, it's required. With that, when you crawl into the mod though, it's got to seem, compared to that little Legend, the mod's got to seem like a boat, as big as it is, where the Legend was so tight.
To be honest with you, I actually felt I had more space in my Legend car than I feel like I have in my modified. With the way the bars are and how you get in and out, it was easier for me to get in and out of my Legend car than it is my modified. Now, the length and obviously overall size, yes, the modified is considerably larger, but just the ease of getting in and out, I would take my Legend car any day.
Well, it has a door.
Right.
Yeah. The doors make
Plus,
it easy, but
plus I'm getting a little bit bigger, so I could just fall in the seat with the Legend car. You can't quite do that in the modified.
with the Chris normally gets this one, so I'll catch her off guard. Why 34?
Darn it.
To be honest with you, that was a big battle with my brother when we first started. I wanted 9 or a single digit number. He thought a single digit number on a Legend car looked really bad. So that's where we kind of fought for that. We did our old kid days of flipping coins to figure out who would get to choose. And oddly enough, I won. And then he pretty much still guilted me into taking a double digit number. So 34 just ended up being what I had for when I was in football in high school. Again, I was supposed to be 9 in football, and for some odd reason, the jersey just never came in, and that was just a jersey that was laying around. So that's the one I went with.
The who is your go-to guy or gal when you're stuck racing wise, be it a chassis thing or you don't know what to do, you go to them for advice. Who is that in the Cody Apfelbeck world?
Well, as I said, so I got a really good buddy, Brandon Ganser, who a lot of people know as Bubba. He does a lot of the work when it comes to figuring out what we need to do chassis wise. But we this year, our first year we actually had someone with Longhorn that we had talked with a lot. That's where we got our base set up from. That's who we called for a lot of the ideas, bouncing them off of them, what we should do. They're no longer a Longhorn dealer at this point in time. So at this point in time, we've pretty much, we talked to a lot of people. So I made good friends with Joe Wood down at Pathfinder. They're on the car this year, helping sponsor with us. So just kind of bouncing off of ideas with them, obviously running the lethal car. We talk with Russ Reinwald quite often with slick stuff, just kind of bouncing ideas off of him. We actually have a contact as well with Scott and Ray Evernham out in North Carolina. So shock-wise, we email back and forth with those guys to kind of see some ideas of maybe what they have to play with. It's obviously where Longhorn's built out that direction. And Scott that kind of does most of the dirt side, build shocks for darn and everything. So just kind of figuring out the hard part is figuring out what advice really applies, because everyone has a little bit something different. And you can't take everything and put it all together and make it work. So you have to pick, be really selective on what you're doing. Sometimes you got to stay into your own notebook and find it out for yourself too.
When the track is up and even, are we more likely to see the 34 running the top or running the tires?
Personally, I don't have a preference. And I learned that in the Legend car. In my early days, I was much more on, I would say, a bottom feeder, and just worked my way around the tires. As I grew into being, I would say, more versatile in my driving capabilities, I learned that less people were up top, so that's just where I happened to go. So to be honest with you, I have zero preference. It's just wherever the cars I'm trying to pass aren't, to be honest with you.
In the modified class, if you have to race with one guy and know that he's not going to lay a wheel on you, and he's going to run you clean, but run you the hardest race you're going to run, who's that guy?
I haven't been in the game long, obviously, but now racing with Brandon Schmidt, I know he's a pretty clean racer. Obviously, through the years of me watching a Legend race and racing with the modified, obviously a close friend of ours. So I would say I never have to worry about him. There's a handful of other guys, obviously, in the modified division. Noah Shepard obviously runs pretty darn clean. Even his dad, said, there's been a couple instances last year that we got pretty close and never ever touched there. So we have quite a few guys that we race with that are very, very clean.
In a perfect world, money is no object. Chris would just write the big blank check for you.
Hey, yeah.
I'll take that tomorrow, please.
The Chris Shepard Enterprises check.
Gary.
Where would we see Cody Apfelbeck racing?
As in like a track wise, or like what kind of car are you referencing?
Both. Bucket list car, bucket list tracks.
As I said, if the wife would let me, I'd get into a midget of some sort. I wouldn't have a preference on really where we race, but to keep it kind of local wise, to be honest with you, I love Beaver Dam Raceway, but even with the Legend car, it was the same kind of concept, and we carry that same mindset into the modified. We're big fish hunting in a sense. So we're out to learn how to race at big money shows, and we want to be competitive. We want to be winning those. That was our goal as we progressed in the Legend, and same role in the modified. And I think a track that's more dry allows us to learn more. Beaver Dam is typically a little bit heavier, so we don't learn quite as much there on a night on setup wise what we can adjust compared to what we learn per se going to Seymour or a 141 or something like that, where I would say some of the guys that compete at a lot of these big money shows are running.
When with the A mods, the debate continues to rage, crate or open. Your viewpoints?
We run crate, and again, it goes right back to that same mindset. When we sat down on what we wanted to do, we asked ourselves, what the trend was going, what was going to give us our best option or best chance at winning big money races, and that's where we landed at the crate. Now, we've been racing obviously at Beaver Dam quite a bit, and you see there's a handful of crates even there, even on the tack, and we can run with the guys that have big motors. So it's not a question on that. You can see there's a handful of crates that are running there, but I feel if you had someone with a crate car that really had a lot of time to make sure the car went through the corners correct, a crate car can still win points over some of those big motor cars at Beaver Dam.
Chris, what have you got for on your computer questions?
Well, first, Lacey Christian says pink is fast, Cody. So, which I like that you have the number 30. Yeah, but there's a few 34s out there, and I always know if it's the pink one, that's Cody.
You try to stand out.
Yeah. Sandy Schamberger would like to know, what did you go to college for?
I went to school for business administration. I had a marketing emphasis on that side of things, so that's kind of the way I went. I thought I wanted to be in sports, but I like money way too much, so I had to find a way to make more.
So where did that take you after college? What do you do outside of the racetrack? Where do you work?
I work for a company called Burlon Industries. We sell skid loader attachments, loader attachments. So kind of all over the U.S. So, but I cover anywhere from the northwestern Wisconsin area all the way out to California now. So I have all the rental places all the way out to California. So.
Nice. Jared Apfelbeck. Any relation? Wants to know what drives you to become a better driver?
I'm just that competitive. I hate losing, and I actually made a comment to my friend Bubba here the other day. If I'm going to lose, I better be learning something, because I hate losing the way it is. But if I'm going to be not winning the race, I better have learned something in the process. Finishing second drives me crazy, and people are like, it's a good night. No, like we show up to the track to win.
Nice.
That's just, it's just how I.
The old statement that the George Scheffler, who I don't know if you're old enough to know George Scheffler, but
you're not.
Mitch McGrath's grandfather, I believe, is where it comes in. You may recognize that. Second place is first loser, and that was his mantra. So when they show up to win.
Yep, I've said that multiple times. My wife, on the other hand, does not share that same competitive fire. She usually gets on me pretty bad if we, in her eyes, have a good night, and I'm still kind of pissed off. Where I'm like, we should have won that, or we should have done this differently. She's like, but the car's in one place, and you finished in the top 5. You should be happy. Yeah, but we should have done better. So.
Yeah, but then Jerry's not having a fit because you guys are crashing each other on 3 laps from the end and making all kinds of work for your crew. But I get it, but sometimes second's not a bad deal either.
Yeah, so lucky enough so that I, other than wrecking myself for the most part, in my years of racing, I haven't been entangled up with too many people that have wrecked a bunch of stuff. So obviously I've gotten wrecked, whether it be flipped myself or had people hit me that's caused me to flip, that's wrecked enough cars in my day.
So you're talking about that notebook of advice that you have? Here's Chris's advice, just turn left. Okay.
Occasionally right, or? Well,
every once in a while.
Usually if you turn left, you're too tight.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there's another question, but I'm not going to say who it's from. I'm going to see if you can guess who it's from. They want to know, who was your biggest competition in the Legends?
I would have to say Justin Pearson. He was the one that we battled with so often. And working with, even funny thing is, we worked side by side with Brian and Justin here towards the end, obviously, especially after my father passed. But it was always, that was fun. I've been trying to talk those guys into getting out of the Grand National into a modified so that we can race against each other again. But I don't know if we can get that to happen.
It's got to be refreshing, you coming out of the Legends and seeing how many drivers have come through the Legends with you and have moved on. Now they've not all gone into the A-Mods, but throughout the pit area, that Legend class seems to be a great place to start and gain that necessary experience and what I call a race attitude and a race mentality, and then take that on like you have into the A-Mods and into the upper classes.
Yeah, I think now, I guess I don't know a lot of the drivers in the larger classes, what they grew up racing, if they came through Legends or not. But I think what the benefit I've learned with Legend car racing and the guys that are in there as they start to work their way through to getting into bigger cars. You just learn that you can't always lean on people, and that, there's so many guys that just jump into a 4-cylinder or a street stock or something like that, and you got sides to be able to lean and hit and bang and kind of beat on people. Where with a legend car, you do that, you're rolling, or you're wrecking a whole heck of a lot of stuff. So it just teaches you to stay off everybody.
Even though that legend car has fenders, we typically look upon that more as an open wheel type car. That fiberglass isn't going to stop you from getting upside down. And as Chris will attest, we put one upside down pretty heavy on the front straightaway a couple of weeks ago. And they do get upside down. You know that yourself.
Yeah, we've done it 3 times. Yep.
That car didn't just go upside down. And the one the other week was, I think, Mick Johnson. He cartwheeled. That was enough.
A similar situation to what we did at my rookie year. I think I went a little bit farther than he did, because I think I started at the exit of the exit of turn 4. I believe I landed on the tire in turn 1. But yeah, it's doing that is not the best.
Now let's keep that A mod down on the ground. That I'm sure will keep Mrs. Apfelbeck really happy.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I told the wife that those cars didn't roll very often when I got into them, which I had many years watching Flick race and didn't see very many rollover. So I wasn't lying when I told her that. But I swear, after we got in, those things learn how to roll really quickly. Because I was not the only one that was rolling.
Oh no, we've seen a number of them.
Mo Legends wants to know, what's the one race you wish you could have a do-over?
While you're pondering that, Mo Legends, you do know who that is, right?
Yeah, that's the good old Comer boys down there in Missouri. It should be the old man, if I'm not mistaken. So.
As in Dave Comer Sr.
Correct. If I had to go back one race, obviously there's countless ones that I can think of that I either made mistakes that we cost us the race, but there was one night, had to be our 3rd year in legend car racing down in Iowa. It was 1,000 wind show down there, but it was like 110 degrees. It was miserable. We literally got out of the truck and just started sweating. And my dad goes, "Can we just go back home?" I'm like, "Nah, we might as well see how well we can do down here." And it was a little boring. I can't even recall the track anymore. And funny that it is we happened to lose to Justin. We actually, on a late restart, we happened to get around him on the outside I had to be 3 or 4 laps to go. And before we could complete the lap, a car had stalled on the front stretch and called the caution out. So they restarted us, and he blocked how I found to get around him on the restart. So at that point in time, we ended up settling for second. But if I would love to redo that race just to try to give him another run for his money for the big show there.
I believe that track was Brooklyn.
That could be it. It's been so long, and we only raced there once. I just don't recall where it was. But that race down there lent us quite a bit of friends from the Missouri area, whether it be the Comers that we met down there and made good friends with them, or McDougal's or the Cox boys. Said we made good friends with those guys down at that race that has lent us for many years now.
And you even did you did some traveling. You did that Dakota tour with the Legend one year.
Yeah, so we did make that trip. It's a whole different animal out there than over here. That's kind of what we had learned. Those guys are really good out there as well. But the track surface is night and day different. It's not nearly, they're not running on clay like we do out here. It's a lot of sand, and the same stuff that we do over here for dry tracks or even just setup wise is just didn't pan out over there. So we didn't actually do even very well out there, which was very discouraging. So we, it made us really say, hey, ideally we need to, if we're going to do this ever again, we need to come out here for weeks to test and figure out what the cars really need to be fast out there.
So Mo Legends just said, old man, what the heck?
Older.
Man. There you go. Jared came back again and is asking, what's your most memorable racing moment?
It would have to be that the race that I had touched base earlier on here. It said 3 years ago when we won one of those 1,000 win shows. So at that point in time, my dad was still around to experience that. And it was always nice to have the family out at those races. It would have been great, and I would have said maybe winning a championship at Beaver Dam or the Worlds kind of stuff like that would have been great to have under our belt. But for a single race, I would have to say that just because the family was there, and especially him.
Any more, Chris?
That's all that's on there.
All right. Pretty much wraps it up with what I had. Chris, any last thoughts of yours?
No, I don't really have. It's just always been enjoyable to come or to see you race. So thanks again for joining us.
It's always nice to see you at the track.
Well,
a friendly face.
Yeah, you're starting to get bad habits like Brandon Schmidt and not come and see me at driver check-in. But
I swear it's the bigger cars that do that, because I used to be at the track at like 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So
I think it's called those pressures of things to do in the shop and with the family that cause that.
Oh, yeah.
We always find last second things.
Right, that's what it is. I think it's you just like to have your feet put up and you just send James Fletcher in to check y'all in.
Half the time he messages me and says, hey, you want me to check you in? Sure, why not? I might as well have you check me in just in case I don't make it there on time.
Okay.
As long as you're in by 5:15.
5:15. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. We will see you Saturday. Or this Saturday, are you going to be out? Or
I have a wedding this Saturday.
Okay.
So I won't be out this weekend. So I'm not for sure yet where we're going to run next weekend. I know we plan to run Seymour for sure. We might run Beaver Dam. Otherwise, we'll be kind of shooting, flipping the coin if we want to run Beaver Dam Saturday or 141 Saturday yet. So,
well, we'll watch your Facebook.
I'll try to keep everyone posted, but
see where you're
one
going.
thing I will say, one thing I will say though, or at least I would like to say, at least, none of this is possible without all the sponsors I have. So we got a lot of people that have followed us from day one with the Legend car all the way into the A-Mod stuff. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to at least list those guys and give those guys some credit as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Give them their props. And your crew.
Yeah, I guess I can start with crew. So obviously a good friend of ours, Brandon Gens, or what we call Bubba, helps us out a lot. My brother Jared. We got a couple of new guys, Trevor, Kyle, which actually is one of our sponsors. But I gotta thank the wife too for giving me the time to do it. Obviously, love the little guy too. But sponsor-wise, we got Dernberger Diesel Service out of Iron Ridge, with also Cody Customs, Jackson Concrete right over by Jackson. So, Pink Hat, if you ever need some of these concrete, great guys over there by Jackson. Got a couple of new guys, L&L Propane, Compass Surveying, spent with us for a while. Park Plaza Pizza, obviously in Beaver Dam. Hometown Glass, JB Mechanical, Dynamic Realty Group, J&J Trucking, EK Machine, Horicon Bank, Horicon Family Chiropractic, Verline Industries, Perf Desk, which is an artist out of Beaver Dam that does some of our sponsorship thank yous. Source Services came on this year, so I got to thank those guys as well. We got Air Gas, and then Joe Wood with Pathfinder has been great help, and same thing with Russ Reinwell with Slick.
Very cool. All part of keeping that beautiful 34 looking in tip-top shape and coming to the racetrack looking for wins. Any parting thoughts, Chris?
Nope.
All right. That'll wrap it up then. Cody, it's great to have you on as a guest, and we look forward to seeing you at your next appearance out at Beaver Dam Raceway.
Thank you very much, guys. I look forward to it as well.
Thanks, Cody.